Welcome to this deep dive. We are so glad you could join us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to dig into this one.
Okay, so our mission today is unprecedented, really. We are going to extract and unpack every single factual detail, literally 100% of the information, and every verbatim English quote from Daniel E. Fleming's massive research on the ancient Mesopotamian kingdom of Mari.
Right. His book, Democracy's Ancient Ancestors, is an incredible text.
It really is. We're exploring this super intricate web of population terminology, the nuances of tribal versus political identities, and, the contrasting styles of ancient kingship.
And we are not skipping anything. We're going through all of it.
Exactly. So to set the stage for you, we have to understand the foundational premise of this world. All of Mesopotamia was divided into lands, which they called madams, and districts called wholesome.
But the crucial thing here is that these lands were defined by the people, right? It was about their decision-making and governance, not like geography or borders on a map.
Right. Which means to truly understand the political entities that had power, we actually have to start by understanding the people who had absolutely no political voice.
It's the only way it makes sense.
Yeah, and that leads us directly to the two major apolitical population terms we're going to cover first, the Nija and the Mushiganim.
So starting with the Nuja, this term shows up a lot in Babylonian inscriptions from Hammurabi and his successors. It basically translates to the dependents.
The dependents, okay.
Yeah. And unlike a madam, which has independent political will, like it can choose to follow a king or it can revolt, the Nija never form a decision-making group.
They just don't have a say.
None at all. They are dependents under a patriarchal male head or sometimes a female head. And grammatically, they express this dependence via genitive possession. They literally belong to someone.
Wow. But they aren't like inanimate objects, right?
Right, no. The non-human domain is defined totally differently. Things like possessions are bashitum, furnishings are enutum, or they just use the words for house or grain.
Okay, so they distinguish between people and stuff.
Exactly. But in the ideologies of Hammurabi and Samsu-Luna, the matum, the land, and the nisha, the dependents, actually become a merism.
A merism.
Yeah.
Two parts representing a whole.
Yeah. They use the pair to signify beneficent rule. Though, interestingly, there's a bilingual Hammurabi inscription that completely omits a Sumerian equivalent for the Akkadian term nush.
Huh. So how exactly did they talk about these people in the texts?
Well, we have a ton of examples. For instance, there's a record of a man moving upstream with, quote, his mother and his dependents.
Just casually listed like luggage.
Basically. Yakamadu also reports on a Kurdaite man named Yarim Dadu who was traveling with dependents, and it gets darker.
Oh.
Yeah. We have a letter about the sale of a household into slavery. Yasim Dagan writes, quote, they did not find that man, and he had sold his house, meaning his household, and his dependents into slavery. On the next day, a tablet reached me from Yasim Dagan saying, this man has just arrived. Now my lord should write to me one way or another whether I should set free his dependents.
Wait, so the dependents were just sold off because the guy disappeared?
Exactly. They were entirely tied to his legal status. High-ranking women managed them too. A lady named Samia complains to Sinanaya, quote, why have you given up managing your house and sustaining your dependents?
It's just an everyday responsibility for them.
Right, and they were used as collateral. The king of Carchemish writes to Zimri-Lim regarding a trial by ordeal, saying, quote, I will hand over their houses and their dependents for the striking of their heads.
That is brutal.
It is. We also see leaders moving them in bulk. A message addressing a clan by its chief, Zimranim, says, quote, take the hand of your dependents, come together, go away into the countryside, cross over to Abatum, and settle in your own back country with your kinsmen.
So they just got uprooted whenever the head of the clan said so.
Yep. Another text about the creation of a fortified town notes, quote, Zykum the Abliaite has taken flight with his dependents to Harbu, where he has built a village between Harbu and Ayabu.
Man, they are everywhere in these records.
Oh, totally. King Hayasumu of Ilansura even calls the people in another town, quote, my dependents. The Akkadian is Nijia. And incredibly, even a temple could have a niche.
A temple's dependents. That's fascinating.
Yeah. And legally, the Code of Hammurabi, specifically Law 24, states that the Nujia of a dead man receives silver from the town.
So they had some protections, even if they had no power. It reminds me of minor children in a modern family.
Oh, that's a good comparison.
Yeah, because they're cared for and they belong to the household.
Mm.
But if the parents decide to move across the country, the kids don't exactly get a veto. They just have to pack their bags.
That is spot on.
But, I mean, how does this total lack of political voice scale up to entire communities?
Mhm.
Because if the Nusha are the dependents of a household, there has to be another group, right?
Right.
Like the dependents of the state.
Yes. And that brings us to the Musherim. These are the people who fall outside the state's direct financial support.
Commoners.
Exactly. They are the massive royal subjects, not directly dependent on royal largesse. The term is defined by palace administrators, and it's completely apolitical, based mostly on submission.
How do historians define them today?
Well, there's debate. Durand identifies them as free countryside residents who aren't from the cities or vols and who don't join periodic tribal movements.
Okay, so rural folks.
Right. Robert Adams also links them to rural life and an inferior status, contrasting them with the palace. John Brinkman agrees, calling it a rural versus urban opposition.
But is it just about being poor?
Not entirely. F.R. Krauss defines them as the whole free population, not dependent on the palace. They are definitely not strictly poor, although, destitute people do fall into this group.
So they could actually own things.
Oh, yeah. They owned agricultural land, grain, livestock, boats, wagons, and even slaves.
Wow, okay. So they're a diverse economic group.
Very much so. Grammatically, they are usually treated as a singular collective, though occasionally you see the plural lume, but politically. They do not meet, they do not send letters, and they absolutely do not decide on war or peace.
They're just living their lives under the radar.
Pretty much. The term is heavily used in Khatun. That's a district located far up the Habra River, southwest of Jebel Sinjar.
Why there specifically?
Well, it's the only district with a Shapatim governor completely outside the banks of the Euphrates, which they called Puratim. Its proximity to the Similite stronghold probably highlighted the contrast with mobile pastoralists.
Ah, I see.
Yeah. And just as a side note, Mario Liverani's oversimplification of Bronze Age Syria, where he claims there were only two types of property or population, is a bit too simplistic when you look at these texts.
Because it's messier than that.
Way messier. For example, Zazia, the Turuku king, tells Meptum, a Suhum leader, to collect 1,000 sheep from an undifferentiated mass, just calling them, quote, your Mushanim.
All right, I know you have a massive list of examples for this group, too. Hit me with them.
You bet. So Zimri Lim's own daughter, Kiru, complains that she is, quote, the slave of a Mukenam. She meant she lost her father's royal support and got downgraded.
Ouch. Quite the demotion.
Yeah. Then there's an unidentified leader who actually helped Zimri Lim acquire the throne, but he couldn't inherit his own ancestor's throne. He says, quote, I am a commoner. He was separated from palace support.
That's tragic. What about the people above them?
The hierarchy includes the Awilim, the gentlemen. An envoy named Duri Yulbur says 3 Yemenite kings lodged at Sirta in, quote, the house of a certain Awilim of the Aruru tribe.
So they definitely kept the classes separate.
Oh, strictly. A Balalim, or townmaster, writes about separating populations, quote, and I myself am determined to keep the gentlemen, the Awilu, in settlements until the townmaster arrives, and I have already calmed the heart of the Mukenim. Until your son arrives, you must absolutely keep the Mukenim in settlements.
It sounds like crowd control.
It was. A Similite town named Saparatum actually leaves the Mushenim out of their men lists entirely. Another text speaks of the Mushenim Washibut Alim, meaning those residents in the town at Katunan.
So they were definitely settled, not nomadic.
Right. A Samsiadu period letter identifies the Mushakinu Shalani, the Mushinim of the towns, performing the Nurgle festival, and sets them directly against the Nowam, the backcountry steppe.
Got it. The town versus the wild.
Exactly. Another Samsiadu text says, quote, the sheep of the Hana and of the Mushenim of the banks of the Euphrates, Apuratim, have crossed the river to the wadis.
But wait, earlier you said they were free. I want to push back on that a bit.
Go ahead.
Because Katunan's governor, Zakir Hamu, talks about arresting them.
He does. He says, quote, and the rich Awilim who has barley is staying, while the poor Mushinim who has no barley has departed toward the Euphrates River.
And he didn't just let them go.
No. He also writes, quote, whoever among the Mushenim of the district is about to depart without your permission for the land of Ubartum, arrest him and conduct him to me.
Arrest him for trying not to starve.
Yeah, the commoners literally ask, quote, how can we stay without food? But the state needed them. The palace and the Mushenim worked side by side on the harvest with the Awalut Ikalim, the men of the palace.
So they were a captive labor force.
Pretty much. We see it in land grants, too. The Param troops and the Shuturim guards get 5 ikus of land, that the sons of the land, the local commoners, only get 3.
They just institutionalized the inequality.
Openly, the text says, quote, "Just as for the regular mustered soldier and the royal guard of the banks of the Euphrates, who receive 5 ikus of land each and perform hard service for the palace, and the detachment of the Katunan district does receive 5 ikus each. Likewise, I intend to provide you those full 5 ikus as your land allotments, so that I can assign the remaining fields to the local population, the sons of the land, at 3 ikus each."
Wow, just spelling it out.
Yep. And it emphatically adds, quote, "These fields are palace fields."
So the state owns everything, and the commoners just work it. Did they ever push back?
Oh, all the time. The Sagaratam governor complains about having to take responsibility, quote, "along with the Mushikenim, for sacrifices of the sons of the land."
They're stressed out by them.
Very. Hamanum, the Ablia governor, says he's going to ignore positive omens for distributing barley. Quote, "When he, the diviner Zikri Hanat, has taken omens, even if they are totally favorable, I will not hand over 1 liter of barley. The Mushanim of my district will hear about it, and they will strike their noses."
Meaning they'll protest?
Exactly. Ilusha Nasir in Katunan fears the commoners will hear of an evacuation and say, quote, "How can we stay?"
They were constantly on the verge of walking off the job.
Zakira Hamu actually quotes their protests over locusts. Quote, "Now that the locusts are eating our crop, are we ourselves supposed to be able to stay in this place?" And regarding harvest labor, they said, quote, "The requirement is too severe for us."
You can really hear the frustration in their voices across thousands of years.
You really can. In the acquired town of Elatum, an official writes, quote, "Have you never before sold fields or a house that belonged to you?" And as for what Nursin is saying to the Muchinum, "Go to the mountains for wood, send your donkeys, come to my help." This is what Nursin took and said, so the Mushinum were complaining to him, saying, "Are we going to serve as slaves just as for Geshada, queen mother of Yamhad?"
Good for them. Did they have any autonomy at all?
Mostly religious independence. Vizier Tarim Shakim writes, quote, "Regarding the wagon of Nurgle sacrifice, it is to be hoped that the Mushigamum of the villages will not place it in the coming month."
So they organized their own festivals.
Yes, Yakim Adu asks approval for the 8th of next month for the Pagru sacrifices. And the Samsi Aduramam festival has totally separate palace and Muchinum preparations with separate funding.
That's fascinating.
Diviners Askurum and Ibiamurim even report omens specifically from a Mushikanum sacrifice.
Wait, really? The state kept tabs on their omens.
Oh, big time. There's this wild diviners protocol, ARM 26.1. The text is fragmented, but it says, quote, "Blank of the Mushanim, blank is found or placed, and I see it. Not good. Whatever I see, blank, I will hereby speak. I will not hide it. The bad sign, flesh, blank, which is found in the omens of Zimri Lim, blanked in abnormal birth, or blank, I will tell no one. And the secret message which Zimri Lim, my lord, speaks to me, to take omens, blank."
So he's swearing to keep the king's bad omens a secret, but he has to report the commoner's omens immediately.
Precisely. Durand originally restored a word to mean in the instruction of the Mushikanum, but scholars now agree the better reading is Ina Siskur 2, Asha Mu'ushkinim, meaning in the sacrifices of the Mushikanum.
Wow. Okay, so we've seen how the state controls the settled commoners, but what about the people who aren't settled?
Ah, now we get to the Hana, the mobile pastoralists.
This is wild because kings actually branded their entire empires based on these nomads, right?
They did. The term Hana distinguishes pastoralist subsistence tent dwellers from political tribes. Kings Yadun Lim and Zimri Lim, who were part of the Semilite Confederacy, both used the titulary, quote, "King of Mari," and the land of the tent dwellers, the Mat Hana.
So they're linking the urban center of Mari directly with the nomads.
Exactly. It effectively claims tribal unity while completely excluding their rivals, the Yamanites.
Right, because the Yemenites were incorporated into the core Halsam districts under the Shapetum governors?
Yes, whereas the Semilite Hana were governed by Merhum chiefs.
So did the term Hana mean all nomads everywhere?
Not at all. Durand uses a great American analogy to explain this.
Oh, like how someone in France might call anyone from North or South America an American.
Right, an outsider's view. But if you live in the U.S., American is a narrow us perspective.
Mhm.
The Mat Hana was that narrow Semilite us perspective, not a universal Bedouin claim.
Gotcha. So where do we see this title used?
All over. It's on Zimri Lim's treaties with Atamram of Underig and Hammurabi of Babylon against Elam. It's in oaths with Hana and Karana officials. It always reads, quote, "Zimri Lim, son of Yadun Lim, king of Mari and the Mat Hana."
Did anyone else use this?
While Yadun Lim's sister Seal reads, quote, King of Mari and the Mat Simal. So the tribal connection was deep.
And they actively excluded the Ammonites from this.
Totally. A census in Zimri Lim's 6th year leaves the Ammonites completely out, instead citing Amat Mishon, which was the seat of a Yaru ruler with over 10 settlements.
They really didn't trust them.
They didn't. Listen to this oath protocol dividing the populations. Quote, I shall hereby never commit offense against Zimri Lim, my lord, and when I hear an unfriendly word, either from the mouth of the Hana of the steppe or in the mouth of the townsmen, saying, Zimri Lim and his offspring shall not rule us, I shall hereby not join in bringing trouble on Zimri Lim and his offspring.
They had to swear to report both the nomads and the townsmen.
Yep. And the nomads were managed by the Merhum, governing from the Nowum, the steppe. One writes, quote, The flocks of the Hana that are grazing in my district are well. They have received fair treatment in pasture and water and in justice. For the flocks of the Hana and for the town of Kahat, all is well.
Sounds peaceful enough.
Usually, but there were risks. Another writes, quote, I am afraid that when the flocks of the Hana graze on the left bank or near bank of the river, the enemy will fall on them and losses will occur.
Because they're always moving.
Exactly. The Merhum Ibal El says it perfectly. Quote, My lord knows that I govern the Hana, and like the merchant who travels between zones of war and of peace, the Hana travel on foot between zones of war and of peace.
I love that image.
Me too. They were totally fluid. The ruler of Zalahan quotes Zimri Lim, saying, quote, You said Zalahan is not part of, literally a son of, Idamaras. It is a part of Simamal. My lord should then write to Ibal Piel so that the population of my district can go around with the tent dwellers, the Hana, at the edge of the blank, and so he can take responsibility for me.
Because the upper Heber Semilite towns were under those Merhomes.
Exactly. But Badi Lim notes that when Semilites come from the steppe to Wajam, or take residence, they feel kalum, meaning held or trapped, if they're unable to leave.
They hate being tied down.
Right. And this tribal loyalty fueled massive wars. A Yadun Lim Amash temple text details a fight against 3 Yamanite kings, Laum of Samanum and Ubarpu, Balukulim of Tutul and Amnanu, and Ayalim of Abatum and Rabu.
Wow, that's a massive coalition.
And they had help from Sumuepu of Yamhad. The text says, quote, During the same year, Lahum, king of Samanum and the land of the Ubarpu, Balukulim, king of Tutul and the land of the Amanu, and Ayalum, king of Abatum and the land of the Rabu, these kings went to war against him. The army of Sumuepu of the land of Yamhad then came to reinforce them, and they united together against him in the town of Samanum of the tribal confederacy of the Ammonites. But with a mighty weapon, he defeated these 3 kings of the Ammonites.
And the text referred to the Ammonites as Marmum, right?
Yes. There was also success in the north against a Semilite rival named Kasuri Hala. Quote, He tore down the town of Haman of the tribal confederacy of the Hana, which all the fathers of the Hana had built, and made it a mound and a ruin. Thus he defeated Kasuri Hala, its king.
Brutal.
Very. On a disc text for Dor Yadun Lim, it says, quote, 7 kings, fathers of the Hana, who fought together against me. I defeated them and restored their land, Modem, to my side. He took the title, quote, King of Mari, Tutul, and the Mad Hana.
Didn't he also have a special epithet about the Euphrates?
He did. Gamir Gu Idibaranane, which means who established control over the banks of the Euphrates.
And Zimri Lim copied that, right?
Yep, on his long seal. Quote, Zimri Lim, appointed by Dagon, beloved of Enlil, who established control over the banks of the Euphrates, Gamir I Dibaranunki, king of Mari and the Mat Hana, son of Yadun Lim.
But then Samsi Adu came in and messed it all up.
He totally did. Samsi Adu took Mari, ended the Mat Hana title, and placed his son Yazma Adu over Mari and the banks of the Euphrates. He even moved the seat to Uba Enlil, which was formerly Aina.
Did the nomads just accept that?
It was tense. A guy named Laum writes to Yazma Adu about a Semilite group called the Yumahamu. Quote, The sheep of the Hana and of the Mushinim of the Aparatim have just crossed over to the Wadis. 11 herdsmen under the authority of Amar Fushalim and all the Yumahamu Hana have crossed. They are pasturing their flocks near Dur Yazma Adu and downstream. I hope that the Yamanites who have not sworn loyalty oaths will not quarrel with them and so do them harm.
So the different tribes are just brushing right past each other.
Exactly. And this leads to my favorite cultural clash. Badi Lim writes, ARM 676, about the Akkadians versus the Hana. Quote, It is a known fact that when we were in the camp of Apan, I spoke to my lord as follows. Today, the land of the Yamanites has been handed over to you. That land is covered with the garment of the Akkadian. My lord must honor the head of his kingship. Just as you are the king of the Hana, so you are secondly the king of the Akkadians. My lord must not therefore ride a horse. My lord must rather ride on a litter and mules if he is to honor the head of his kingship. I advise my lord in this way.
That is amazing. It's like a politician in a factory town wearing a hard hat but putting on a tailored suit for the capital.
Exactly. Riding a horse was the mount of the Hana, the nomads. To the settled Akkadians in the Puratim Valley, which was deeply Yemenite, it was offensive.
Because they expect the nubilum, the litter, and mules?
Yes. Those Yemenite towns, Titul, at Telbiya, Abatum, Samanum, were volatile. A text says, quote, all the Yemenites have left their towns and their land, and they are on the roam. Now some of them are scheming as follows. We should seize the town of Tutul as a fortified base, so it will be blank, and then we should also take over Imar. The Yemenites are contemplating this.
So Zimrilim had to tread really carefully.
Very. Moshe Anbar notes that 23% of Yemenite names were Akkadian, compared to just 7% among the Hana. There's even an unpublished text that calls Zimrilim king of the Akkadian and the Amorite.
Okay, so we've seen how the population was divided.
Yeah.
Let's transition to how these kings actually managed this fractured society day to day.
Right. Zimrilim ruled an active tribal kingdom. This was totally different from Hammurabi of Babylon, who was fifth in line and used no tribal titles, or Samsi-Addu.
Samsi-Addu claimed to be the heir to Sargon and Naram-Sin of Agade, right?
Yes. He wanted to rule the Tigris and Euphrates and completely discarded tribal ties.
Right.
His Kispum ritual actually names Sargon and Naram-Sin, and a goblet dedication calls him King of Agade.
Whereas other Amorite kings did have tribal roots.
Yeah, like Kudur Mabuk of Larsa from the Amutbal tribe, or Sinkashid of Uruk from the Amnanim. But Zimrilim actively lived it. He traveled constantly.
His allies noticed too, didn't they?
Oh, yeah. Hammurabi of Babylon said about Zimrilim, quote, Rim-Sin, king of Larsa, sent out these hostile words. Except for the great gods who came to my aid, it was Zimrilim, the king of the Simites, who put his life on the line with me again and again. There was no one else.
But the tribal thing could backfire.
Definitely. Hammurabi of Kurda addresses the Numhat tribe, trying to turn them. Quote, the king of Babylon has sent me troops. As of today, Zimrilim has never, earlier or later, come in solidarity with the Numha. At the time of Karnilim, he came up instead in solidarity with the rebellion. At the time of Atamrim, he came back once again. Now he is about to go in solidarity with Himdia also. At this moment, the Babylonians want to unite with me, and I want to declare war on the Simites.
And how did the Numha respond?
They shut him down. Quote, the Numha answered him as follows. Our brother Simites aside, we are at peace with Babylon, but time and again we have put our lives on the line with the Simites. This is how his land answered him.
Loyalty ran deep.
It did. Bunu Ishadar of Kurda flat out said, quote, without Zimrilim and the Hana, I can enter no peace agreement.
Which made the Hana a massive target.
Yes, Ibalpiel II of Eujuna literally named a year for attacking Ubartu and Hana.
Wow.
And internally, betrayal was punished severely. A Sagaratim governor's oath says, quote, may these gods wipe out all my descendants, the seed of my name, and my offspring. May the Similites see their blank by my example, saying, Zimrilim showed favor to Sumahadu, and Sumahadu blank something bad.
So you had to be constantly present to keep these people in line.
You did, and the nomads judged kings who stayed indoors. There's a Vi nomad letter where Hamijitamar of the Yaruru berates Yazma Adu of the Yarihu just for not living in the open air.
Huh. So Zimrilim was always on the move.
Always. Bertrand Lafont listed 10 major trips in just his first 13 years. Year 0 to Kahat and Idamaras, Year 3 to Ashaka, Year 4 to Habor and Ondereg.
He is racking up the miles.
Year 6 to Ondereg, Kurda and Ubat and Lil. Year 7 to Suhum, Year 8 to Husha and Kume.
Just nonstop.
Years 9 and 10, he went to Ugarit and the Mediterranean Sea for 5 months. Then Arama in year 10, and Ilansura, Andareg, and Ashaka in year 12. Ann Porter notes this is exactly how he integrated a dispersed tribal people.
It makes total sense. It's like a modern CEO who refuses to sit in the corporate boardroom and instead just drives relentlessly from factory to factory to maintain loyalty.
Exactly. Because there was no gathered council, high officials mediated everything, the Chapatum for towns, the Merum for pasture, though some acted too independently. A guy named Banam acted so independently, Zimrilim actually had to remand his decisions. And Tutul retained full autonomy in the west.
Did the palace control the economy?
They controlled agriculture and craft, but curiously, they were almost totally absent in managing animal husbandry in the steppe.
Wait, really?
Yeah, they only managed the shearing. This is unlike the Third Empire at Drahem, which strictly managed the meat supply.
So if they couldn't control the meat, they had to control information.
Absolute, total information control. Loyalty oaths demanded reporting everything. Diplomat Nursin had to defend himself for sending too much info about local prophets.
Oh, let's hear this one.
He writes, quote, "Previously, when I was on duty in Mari, I passed on to my lord any word that a male or female prophet, an Apelum or Epeltum, might speak. Now I am on duty in another land, Apenum, will I not send to my lord what I hear and what they say? If in the future any misstep is found to have occurred, will not my lord say as follows? The word that a prophet spoke to you, so as to claim your plot of land, why did you not send it to me? Therefore I have now sent to my lord."
He is terrified of a cover-up accusation.
Utterly terrified, the surveillance was intense.
Well, this brings us to the end of our massive deep dive. We've seen a political landscape defined not by lines on a map, but by these incredibly complex social categories,
Right, the dependent Nisha, the common Mushanim, and the mobile Hana.
all held together by a tribal king constantly on the move.
Yeah.
But you have a final provocative thought for us.
I do. If Zimri-Lim's empire required such absolute granular control of information that diplomats were terrified not to report the random ramblings of local prophets, does that suggest total surveillance makes a state powerful? Or does it hint that being overloaded by local noise actually paralyzes central authority?
Because Maury did eventually fall to Babylon.
Exactly. Maybe they were just drowning in the noise. Something for you to ponder.
A perfect note to end on. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.